What has he done? That question has never been answered. And the courts are as bad today as they were that day. Now I want to tell you about a New York State trooper named Peter Andrews. A very handsome man, a man of good physique and physiognomy. And he's out on the Taconic Parkway doing his duty, which is arresting as many people as he can. That's called a Rico. R-I-C-O. And do you know what it stands for, folks? R-I-C-O, Rico, is a racketeer influence crime organization. And to be convicted of this has to be three things. One, the motive has to be money. Two, the organization has to commit at least 2 predicate acts a year. These people commit thousands a day. 3, brutality is involved. Force, coercion, violation, threatening, even murdering, threatening to the point of murdering. Does this not fit the vehicle and traffic law to a T? They've got a quota. These troopers are told to meet the quota, or else. So Officer Peter Andrews was out on the Taconic doing his duty, the quota, and he sees a 1993 Lincoln and he sees me in it, and he drives alongside of me and he's peering into my car, and this is very dangerous. I'm going down the Taconic and I've got to look at a cop peering at me in the car. He is trying to find if I had a seatbelt on. He should have had probable cause and known way back there whether I had a seatbelt on or not. And he pulls in front of me. And the 1993 Lincoln is a luxurious car, and it has luxurious Michelin tires, and it doesn't ride except on luxurious pavement. So if you pull it over to the side on, this by the way is February in 2007, and it is the first day of Lent, Ash Wednesday. You pull it over to the side of the road, you may never get it out again. And you can't tow the 1993 Lincoln because you throw off the compressor and the airbag, and the, not airbag, but the compressor. The car rides on air. And you throw it off. And it costs $1,000 to fix it. Well, did he have probable cause? No. Did he have a warrant? No. Did he state in particularity what was to be seized and what was to be searched? And I said, I want to videotape this. Oh, you can't videotape on the Taconic. Did you ever hear of such a foolish thing in your life? But I had my audio tape recorder going fine in my blouse pocket. And he came back so happy because he found not only no seatbelt, but attached, he found no registration and no something else. What is it? Inspection. These are all phony laws anyhow. They're only made to make fees. It's only for fees. So I did that deliberately. I wanted to see how long it would take the New York State Troopers to find this. Well, it took them a year and a half. That doesn't necessarily show vigilance, does it? Well, instantly, I had the summons, and instantly, I made a motion to dismiss on several constitutional issues. For one thing, I couldn't read his writing, so the summons was no good. Two, he endangered my life. And he also, the thing about not videotaping on the Taconic, that was a violation of First Amendment freedom of press and freedom of free speech, freedom of speech, and there are a long list of reasons why it should have been dismissed and why the summons was invalid. And he said to me, I asked him to be on my program. I said, you want to come on my program and talk about being a state trooper? And he, the word for that is a dumbrel, vague disclosure, sketchy representation. And there's something else I wanted to tell you. Oh yeah, he said the license was okay and the insurance was okay. Too bad. But he said if insurance hadn't been, we would have towed your vehicle. What? I think it says very clearly, both in the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment, that I shall not be deprived of my property without due process of law. Where was the due process of law? A court, a judge? Where was that? Well, okay, so I appeared in the court, and it was a typical, Rico court. It was in West Taconic. It was a typical grind out fees at one after another, just one after another, guilty. Nobody was ever innocent. Nobody was ever released. Filled with state troopers, and state troopers acting as district attorneys, which I really question. And so I was told to come back for a trial in June. So it must have been March that I appeared. March, April, May, June. And I wrote a motion. All the motions were ignored. And I sent interrogatories to Peter Andrews for him to answer, and he ignored those. That's due process of law. He ignored those. And so it was set for trial in June. Well, I made a motion to dismiss the case on the basis of my right to speedy trial was violated. Speedy trial is 70 days. March, April, May, and June, that's something like 30, 60, 90, like 120 days. Motion was entirely ignored. What had this judge done? What had this court and this clerk done? They had violated the Constitution of the United States, which he took an oath to support, and which Peter Andrews took an oath to support. They had perjured their oaths to the United States of America by violating the Sixth Amendment, which says speedy trial, and that means 70 days. And the 14th Amendment, which says that a state shall not deny your due process of law, the state being the state of New York. So I went to the trial, and I made Peter Andrews answer my interrogatories there in person, in the witness stand. And I think one of the things the judge says, well, do you think you're above the law? And I said, no, it's you people who think you are above the law. And so they had their good time, and it began to amuse me after a while. And there were 3 offenses, and they were not moving offenses. They're not moving violations. And so the judge was adding it all up, and he came to $320. And I said, well, I need time to pay. Well, how much time you want? I said September. All right. Well, what I should have done right then and there, and in a way I regret that I didn't, I should have sued him right then and there on the spot. The judge, the trooper, and the clerk. The place was filled with New York troopers seeing all this, having to face the evil that they do every day and how they make a living and how they buy their children's shoes and their food with tainted money. I should have taken it directly to the Supreme Court of the United States. Why? Because it's a constitutional issue. Civil rights. The civil rights law is Title 42, the United States Code, 1983. And also 1985 in their cases because they conspired against me. There was more than one. Well, I should have taken them all right to the Supreme Court of the United States. I didn't have to stop at the United States District Court. I didn't have to stop at the U.S. Court of Appeals. I could have gone right as an original action to the Supreme Court of the United States because it was a constitutional issue. Should I have done it? In a way, as an American, I should have. But the Supreme Court of the United States is just as crooked as the United States Court of Appeal, just as crooked as the United States District Court, just as crooked as every state court and every municipal court or any village court that I've ever been in. They're all crooked. They're all like the Pontius Pilate court. Why didn't I? Well, I had watched this crookedness in the court for 20 years. Close up. Close up. Maybe 200 judges, many of whom I sued. Crooked lawyers, crooked clerks. I'd seen it for 20 years. Personal knowledge. And I would report it on TV for 20 years. Today, by the way, there's no limitation. There's no on when you can bring a civil rights action. There's no statute of limitations on it. You can bring it anytime. No matter how long ago it happened, you can bring it in any court of the United States. It's civil rights. Well, why didn't I? I'll tell you why. It goes like this. It was Brother Lawrence who stated it much better than I can. Brother Lawrence said that when he was told, who was Brother Lawrence? He was a monk, 1600s in Paris. And he trained himself to live continuously in the presence of God. Great. And whenever he was told about the evil in the world, he would say to himself, I'm surprised that it's not worse when you consider the extremes to which people's desires will lead them. And then he said, I am sure that God in his providence could change all this, but that God has a reason. And then he said, I pray for the violators. I pray for the victims. And then I go about my peaceful service. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go about my peaceful service, which is telling you and everybody else to go alone with God the first thing in the morning and get your treasure that God has for you. And get your happiness. You will never get your happiness any other way. Face it. You look for it here, there, everywhere. Running around. But you'll never have your happiness until you go to God. So I couldn't spend my time suing Peter Andrews and the judge and the clerk from West Taconic. I couldn't spend my time that way. I had to spend my time doing that myself and passing it on to you. Amen. Solemnly ratified. so be it. Asleep in your bed, and your bed is only what do you call those boards? So you're asleep in your bed, and how would you, 13 minutes to midnight, like to hear this? And about 3 months ago, in the snowiest part of the winter, I have the whole day mapped out, and I have to do titles on a chat with Glendora all day long, and they have to be done. There's a deadline with them. So I get a call, and do you want me to come over and move those tarps? No. Well, I'm going to do it. And if you don't do it, and I said neither one of the cars happens to be running. And it was implicated that this was a lie. The 1993 Lincoln had stopped starting. It needed a new starter. And the 1980 Lincoln, for some reason, needed a lot of attention to get started. You had to put gasoline in the carburetor and all this and that. And that you couldn't do and make titles for a chat with Glendora. So the pressure continued, and it mounted, and it was bulldozed, and it was catapulted. And well, then I'll call the county and have the county remove those as disabled cars. These are luxury cars and Lincolns. One is a classic by 25 years, the other is a classic by 30 years. And at that point I said, I will not continue this conversation any further. And I waited until the irate, immature, out of control, hung up. Now, in coming over the driveway, in and out, that would be 4 times a day, my tarps, my original tarps were ruined. They were shredded. Gregory and I cleaned them all up, and they remained in their disjointed and abused condition for 2 months. Finally, Gregory and I cleaned them up Wednesday. And here they are, all shriveled. Those beautiful tarps that did such a good job. And they have to go to the dump. I think that I should be in reimbursed for those tarps, $40. And so I had to go out and buy new tarps. And each one of these tarps cost $67. I think I should be reimbursed for that, $134. Now I have paid this offender $23,000. Do you think that that's a smart way to treat anybody or customer of $23,000 magnitude? Well, and also, a person of that mind, it really isn't qualified to hold the job that he does, nor is he qualified to serve in the grand jury. Well, peace has been made, apologies have been made, an agreement has been made, that if a come home time is later than 9 o'clock, the car will be parked in the south driveway. And one of the worst offenses was when I was trying to clean up the mess that this person had made of my yard. When I was trying to clean it up, how are you going to clean it up if you don't move the cars? And a moratorium was put on parking the cars in the south driveway. Why? What is it? What is the drive? Is it just possession? Is it some kind of madness? Is it some kind of bipolar? What is it? At the moment, there is peace in the valley. But the grounds of the lawsuit would be violation of the warranty of habitability, violation of commingling the security deposit, violation of my possession of the property that I paid $23,000 for. And inter alia, other gravamen too. And let me tell you this, that I've never met a lawyer yet, or a judge, and I must have met 600 of them when I was in the courts 20 years reporting on them. I never met one of them who could ever follow the New York State real property actions and proceedings law. They miss it on all accounts. So it's a very easy suit to win because it has to be dismissed for lack of prosecution, for lack of knowledge, for lack of understanding of the New York State real property actions and proceedings law and the simple New York State real property law. I heard of a case where a woman is demanding for an apartment. It's a month, the rent is $650. The woman is demanding that the would-be tenants pay $650 to the real estate agent because the woman had to pay the real estate agent to advertise the property. The woman wants a first month's security. The woman wants a last month's security. And the woman wants another $650. How did that ever get up to Columbia County? That sounds like dirty Westchester, which is fast going up to Dutchess too. That's insane. That's just nothing but avarice. Go alone with God the first thing in the morning and find out where your real treasure is. It isn't in $650 rent charged 4 times. What else is there to tell you about landlord-tenant? Our court's usually on the side of landlords. Very often judges are landlords. Yeah, we caught Nikolai down in Westchester. He was a landlord, and he ruled against me in a landlord case. I think I've won all the others. They've been very... Yes, I did win all of the others. All right. Next, I have some very good news for you. These are my funeral clothes. I had my funeral on March the 6th, Saturday, 4 or 5 days ago. You didn't come. So, I'm not leaving you any of my money. And being of sound mind, I'm going to spend it all anyway. But the Reformed Church in Kinderhook, bless their hearts, I asked them to put an announcement in their church bulletin about my funeral. And they, oh, well, we couldn't do that, but they put in this lovely notice that Glendora was celebrating her Christian life at St. Luke's Church Sunday at 2 o'clock. And Glendora is in superb health and high spirits. Everybody is invited to come. Well, that's the way they did that. Thank you, Paul Klaus, and thank you, Pastor Visser. Well, the problem was, it wasn't Sunday, it was Saturday. And so sweet, darling Sarah Schubert, baked me a cake. And she brought it to church Sunday morning, and she was going to go from the Reformed Church after the service up to St. Luke's Church to Glendora's funeral. And Jane Dean said, "Sarah, it was yesterday." Darling Saint. So I'm going to show you that cake. Here it is. One delicious home-baked cake. And what did Sarah do? She used my mother's recipe. Last year, I took the recipe to her and asked her if she would make me one of my mother's cakes, and she did, and it was delicious. So she kept that recipe, and this year, in honor of my funeral, she baked this cake. Thank you, Sarah Schubert, and thank you, John Schubert. Folks, this is the JVC high definition camcorder. This is a camcorder, and the pictures are superlative. And my idea, and it'll do like 16 hours of video. And my idea was to videotape the whole chat with Glendora for a month. And if it's 16 hours, that's 32 shows. And then forego the titles and just hand it to Devin and have him load it onto his computer and then stream it from his computer to the YouTube. That would make things a whole lot faster. It takes 96 hours a month to do a chat with Glendora. Well, Devin comes back and he says it takes too much time. He says it would take something like 10 more times than it would do to do it on DVD. I could do that on maybe DVD in 3 or 4 hours. So, do I be a theoretical physicist or do I do an experimental physicist? Theoretically, I think that's in question. And so I'm going to ask one of my other friends to see if this cannot be done. It is just a great creation of our Lord God, of which there are billions. So that's about the JVC camera. There's Martin Luther's hymn. Oh yes, on earth there is his equal, and then some. Folks, here's a poem for you by Franklyn Buell. His book is Something of Love. And here's a picture of Franklyn Buell. And here's a poem by Franklyn Buell. Good reception. The video and audio were as clear as sun-spanned morn when cheer-loaded notes were born. This robin chose for glad-songed pose, perhaps after due research, a TV antenna perch. our grateful song before thy throne arise. Brother Lawrence, a monk in the 1600s in Paris, and he trained himself, folks, to live continually in the presence of God. Let you and myself train ourselves to live continuously in the presence of that happiness. He found such an advantage in walking with God that he earnestly recommended it to other people. And how was he to accomplish the work in the kitchen as a scullion or a cook? How was he to achieve that in all that confusion without losing the presence of God? Well, he did. And people said that the best example of his living in the presence of God was his countenance, a winning sweetness and calm. He found his support in the simple words of Jesus. And he took exception. He said, only the Creator can be the teacher of truth in its fullness and grandness. Go alone the first thing in the morning to God and hear it yourself. In a single flash, God illumines with knowledge and understanding. In a single flash, he took a dim view of intellect and reasoning. Go alone with God the first thing in the morning where you can hear it directly. He says the unspeakable riches that God speaks forth, they are yours. They're not anywhere else. Alone with God the first thing in the morning, as Jesus Christ did. We achieve only a reflection, a copy, when we might turn our eyes to the incomparable original. Go to God the first thing in the morning and claim your treasure.